The arena lights dimmed, tension was building, and fans leaned forward in anticipation. Two fighters stood ready to clash, both women skilled, determined, and hungry for victory. In one corner was Manon Fire, a French striking phenom with a crisp, technical stand-up game and a rapidly rising reputation in the world of mixed martial arts. In the opposite corner stood Amanda Lino, a powerful South African athlete known for her explosiveness, resilience, and finishing ability. This wasn't just another bout. This was a statement fight. For Fire, it was a chance to prove she belonged among them. For Lino, it was an opportunity to reclaim momentum and show she could stop one of the sport's most promising prospects. The opening round began with both fighters showing respect, feints, jabs, range-finding kicks. Fire took the center of the cage early, using her footwork and striking precision to control the pace. Her southpaw stance caused Lino some difficulty right away. Fire's lead right hand and head kicks were sharp, clean, and efficient. She wasn't rushing, just picking her... surgical accuracy. Lino tried to close the distance, looking to land power shots, but Firett's movement was poor. She circled, countered, and constantly adjusted angles, never staying in one spot long enough to be caught. A minute into the round, Firett began landing her trademark body kicks, loud, thudding shots that echoed through the arena. Each one seemed to sap Lino's energy just a little more. Midway through the first, Firett found her rhythm. She began mixing levels, jabs upstairs, kicks to the midsection, and the occasional knee in the clinch. Lino fired back with looping punches and tried to bully her way into the pocket, but Firett's defense held on. She slipped, countered, and made Lino pay for every mistake. By the end of the first round, the difference in striking accuracy and timing was evident. Firett was calm, composed, and dominant. Lino had taken some damage, but remained game, still dangerous with her raw power and never quit attitude. Round 2 began with renewed urgency. Lino knew she had to change the tempo. She pressed forward aggressively, hoping to break through Firett's range control. Swung with intent, aiming heavy right hands and overhand shots, trying to land something significant. But Firett was too sharp. She leaned out of range, responded with straight lefts down the pipe, and snapped Lino's head back more than once. Then came the turning point. Firett landed a brutal combination, a left straight followed by a high kick that landed flush. Lino staggered, and Firett sensed the moment. She moved in, firing a flurry of punches, and Lino covered up under pressure. A right hook found its mark. A knee followed. The referee hovered close. Despite the onslaught, Lino managed to clinch, buying herself precious seconds. Firett stayed calm, worked the body with short strikes, and eventually broke free. She returned to her range, fast footwork, side kicks, and and jabs that disrupted Lino's timing again and again. Roared as the second round ended. Fire had clearly taken over. Her striking was clean and methodical, while Lino was visibly worn down from absorbing so many precise attacks. In the third round, Fire looked completely in control. She maintained her distance, used her jab like a piston, and launched front kicks that kept Lino at bay. Her conditioning was on full display, still light on her feet, still firing with accuracy. Lino, to her credit, showed toughness beyond measure. She absorbed punishment, tried to return fire, and never stopped moving forward. But Fire was operating on another level. Late in the third, she stunned Lino with another head kick and followed it with a spinning back fist. The crowd gasped. It was a masterclass in striking, speed, timing, and creativity all coming together. By the final round, it was clear the fight was Fire's to lose. Yet, she didn't coast. She pushed forward, staying disciplined, never reckless. She continued picking Lino apart with crisp shots. Every time Lino tried to surge forward, Firet met her with combinations and exited without taking damage. The last minute of the fight was a celebration of Firet's skill. She danced just outside Lino's reach, threw a side kick to the midsection, then followed with a clean left hand. The crowd rose to their feet as the final horn sounded. It wasn't just a victory, it was a performance that made a statement. As the fighters returned to their corners, both knew what the result would be. Lino, despite her warrior spirit, had been outclassed. Firet had put on a clinic, showcasing elite-level striking, tactical intelligence, and composure far beyond her years. The judges' scorecards were unanimous. All three gave the fight to Firet by wide.
You know, regardless of the victory, if it goes men off Euros, wait till like after this round. Lino is still and some ways it kind of makes sense to
margins. The win marked another significant step in her career, one that solidified her as a serious contender in the division. Her hand was raised, and her expression said it all. Focused, proud, but never satisfied. Lino stood tall in defeat. She had taken everything Firet through and stayed standing. Her toughness earned respect, and though she lost the battle, she left the cage with her reputation for heart and determination intact. The fight was more than a contest of technique. It was a demonstration of evolution in women's MMA. Firet's performance reminded the world that the sport is constantly growing, and that elite talent is emerging from every corner of the globe. This bout will be remembered for Firett's precision, her command of range, and her ability to nullify an aggressive, powerful opponent with skill and discipline. For fans, it was a thrilling showcase. For Firett, it was a message to the rest of the division. She was here, and she was ready for the biggest challenges.